Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO slash VC podcast. I'm going to mix the two together today because I have Ryan Morrison here. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks so much for having me, B.
You're welcome. And Ryan, you're like what's the word I'm looking for? You're a connoisseur when it comes to podcasting. And then there's me that only started in February. So you've already been giving me some helpful tips. And I'm looking at you now, looking at how profesh you look. And there's me I'm calling myself an indie podcaster right now, but I aspire to set myself up how you set yourself up because you are the CEO and founder of Maximize Media, which is a performance content firm that builds founder podcasts, video funnels, and paid acquisition to create influence at scale. And I love that whole influence at scale because we can quite often get stuck and not be able to scale in terms of what we should be doing. You also host your own podcast, YouTube show where you feature founders and operators, and you talk a lot about leadership, business, the challenges that we face, and we've got quite a lot of synergies. And you're also a growth marketer, from what I understand, for Long Angle, whereby you're focusing on AI and growth. So you've got a lot going on, but it all feels like it's very forward thinking, futuristic, if you like, stepping into that new world order, and how do you do it, like to your point around influence at scale. So tell us a bit about your journey. Tell us how you founded Maximize Media. Yeah, tell us everything.
All right. Well, thanks for the intro. That's wonderful and very succinctly put in terms of all the different hats that I wear. And I do love, this different synergies we have, which is why I'm so grateful to meet you and be on your show. So for me, my journey really starts as a first generation college student. I grew up in Los Angeles, California, and my family decided that they didn't want to be in Los Angeles anymore. And so in 2016, when I was looking for colleges, I picked University of Michigan as my number one choice, which was near my where my mom grew up. And the rest was history when I got in. My family sold their house, yeah, in Los Angeles, and we moved to Michigan, and then that was my first year at the University of Michigan. Um, and my parents didn't go to college, so I was really kind of drifting on campus for a few years, trying to figure myself out and what my strengths were. Naturally gravitating towards leadership positions in sports or in team projects, and then eventually starting my own companies. And fast forward, I really coming out of school, my badge of honor was I started two companies that I kind of graduated in 2020 with, which was the very interesting time to start a company.
Yeah,
But I think
COVID.
probably the best, right? Um, they say that some of the largest companies in the world have been started during economic downtimes and these really challenging times in history. And that's what I did. So I started a wellness company, and I got like a certification in CliftonStrengths Finder,
Yeah.
and I was coaching. It was funny, after a year of starting it, I found myself coaching like family offices and people like in the high-end business world. And I'm like, I don't know how I got here, but it
Here
somehow
I am.
happened. Yes. I think taking some big risks, which I can talk about how I got into the investment world from a big risk that I took. And then on the other side was a nonprofit. I started a nonprofit to help college founders pursue their startups after college. And I was solving this problem in Michigan where some of our best talent comes to Michigan for the education, and then they leave to grow their companies. They go to Silicon Valley or New York or different areas. And so I wanted to solve this problem. And it led to me starting an accelerator program that I can talk about. And then ultimately, I wanted to build this kind of Andreessen Horowitz model in Michigan where you are incubating companies at the earliest stages where the highest alpha and highest growth opportunities are. And then you invest into these companies, but then they grow with you through another branch. And what I was seeing was what's the like most future proof or the thing that companies need the most, right? It's capital.
Yeah.
And so my lens on capital was not raising capital necessarily, although I got there eventually, but it was actually how do you get customers and cash flow. And so that's what led to the media company, Maximize Media. And it was really about how do we connect you with customers so that you can grow your company without needing investment. And so the Kevin O'Leary model of when your company's working, that's when you put the money in, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just scaling what works.
Yeah,
But you
exactly.
shouldn't use someone else's money to necessarily figure out if you have product market fit. You should grind it out. And
So
so
is
that's
this,
the philosophy I've had.
yeah, I love that. So is that like a, almost like a bit of a bootstrapping analogy in terms of, is that what you're talking about there when you shouldn't need investment to work out your product market fit? It's about how do you maximize your business? How do you maximize what you're bootstrapping so that you are able to understand product market fit? Like, is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, so you nailed it. To put it I guess into an example, something that we did that I think was pretty unique for our accelerator program. One was that it was all geared towards college founders. So we weren't focusing on later stage career people trying to pivot into a career in entrepreneurship. We're focusing on that incubation period between junior and senior year of college where they're working on their companies and then you basically are catching them right before they graduate so you can help them go full time,
Yeah.
right? So we believed in, because of my core of being a first generation college student, I wanted to help other college students, other college founders like me finish school and not have to drop out to pursue their business, right?
Yeah.
And so one thing that we implemented to answer your question was what we call the 14-day cash flow challenge. And so what was unique about it was we accepted, probably had like an 80% acceptance rate. Like if you applied, you got in. If it was a high tech kind of company, like, or we also took, consumer goods. We were looking for companies that could scale, not necessarily like uh, what's it called? Like a traveling food company or something. Like we weren't looking for those kinds of companies. We're looking for scalable companies. But in order to actually sustain in the program beyond the first 14 days, you had to pass a cash flow challenge where you had to earn $555 of revenue, and that would be through selling your services or flipping couches from Facebook Marketplace or whatever you could come up with to make the money. Because what we were trying to demonstrate as core philosophy around founders that we wanted to invest in was, do you have that hustle? Do you have that grit? Do you have that customer obsession where you're just trying to figure out how can I solve a problem for my customer? Because if you have that orientation in your company, it doesn't really matter where you start because where you start is always going to change
Yeah,
and pivot
totally.
down the line
Yeah.
anyway. So
Yeah.
that's like the mindset we were trying to build in the founders.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I don't love the word hustle because I think hustle can kind of make you like it can be relentless, but I love the word grit because it is about that grit. It's about that what you're talking about there is that whole piece around, you know, like understanding, listening to your customer. What do they need? You know, test and learn. Test and learn is exactly what you're talking about, right? Versus kind of sitting back and making assumptions. I love your 14-day challenge because it's like, you see quite often, and I read about a lot of businesses, there's no cash flow, like, but yet they're paying themselves and and you're kind of going, and they're not able to even make ends meet. But yet it's like, well, hang on a second, where's your cash flow? Like there isn't any. What's coming in is automatically going straight back out. So it's how do you create that mentality, that behavior, the understanding that you always need cash flow within your business, don't you? Like, don't you think? Like, was that part of the 14-day challenge to set it up?
Yeah, it was because it was rooted in something even deeper that I didn't realize for me. But whenever I was starting startups and these projects in school, I never won a pitch competition. So I never ever had an influx of money to like get an idea off the ground. It was always just on pure uh, founder sweat equity to like get anything going. And I was like, I didn't know another way to get an idea off the ground was by pure just time, energy, right, and skill. And so that's really what formed my idea about how companies ought to be started. And then it was further reinforced when I started looking into all these companies where, you see Silicon Valley startups raising tens or hundreds of millions of dollars and they never get to profitability.
Yeah.
So they're always reliant on an investor for the next round of funding. And then they sell to somebody and they get their money back, but at what cost? Because then the founders lost all their equity in the process. You just spent a decade of your life building something, and sure, some people get lucky and they end up with a huge lump sum of money, but others, you know, they get all the skills but don't have the money to show for it. And I
So
don't think
true.
that's always true, but I think that in many cases it can be. And so I was just like, why don't you just build from a strong foundation and build really great companies from the get-go?
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so important. Like, because too often, we're just automatically going, I need equity, I need investment straight away. But you haven't even given it yourself or your business a chance to see what's possible, what you can create, what you can do from a bootstrapping point of view. And that, you called out the term grit. It takes patience. It takes, persistence. It takes, I think determination in itself to believe in yourself and to back your own kind of self to do it. Do you know what I mean? Versus straight away going into, oh no, I'm just going to hand it all over. And I use that to say that loosely in terms of handing it all over. But I was talking to somebody yesterday around fast cash, and it's true. Like we quite often we're so desperate for the cash or whatever we need because we think that's going to enable us to maximize our business, scale our business, but at what cost? And it's exactly what you're talking about, right? So tell me quickly, LA, you go from LA to Michigan. That would have been quite a change for you in terms of, the hustle and bustle. There I go, hustle, the bustle of LA, right? And then you go to Michigan. Did you automatically, was there a lot you learned in LA that when you got to Michigan, you saw this untapped opportunity in the market in Michigan? Like, was there something straight away for you that you were like, this is missing here and here's a big opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I think you're scratching on like what are the opportunities and the differences in each, and then also like why am I still building in Michigan, right? I mean, so I'm
No,
still
I think it's
here. I'm in Ann
cool.
Arbor.
Yeah, I
It
think
is,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I can't say that I had some magical insights from being a high schooler in LA, I mean, um, I grew up and went to great high schools and everything like that, growing up, but I do think that when I finally got to Michigan and started exploring entrepreneurship and starting a company, I thought about competition that I would have if I was to live in LA. I also thought about cost of living,
Yeah.
because I'm bootstrapping. I'm putting sweat into this and, eating, on $75 per week food budgets and, really living lean, while also trying to like be healthy, which is also really important to me and the things I'm doing and building. And I just looked at it and I was like, I don't think that I could do this in LA was
No.
like the first one. Um, it would just be too hard. I'd have to work a job full time and then do my stuff on the side. What I was scared about in getting a job, out of school was getting an employee mindset because I saw for more context, I did a fifth year at Michigan because I wanted to live out my dream of playing ultimate frisbee,
Oh,
at school.
cool.
Yeah, it was something I wanted to do as a freshman, and then I put it on pause, and then the pandemic hit, and I never got to live my dream. So I did a fifth year. All of my friends graduated, got these corporate jobs at Big Four consulting companies and banking and all of that. And then next thing you knew, all of them were complaining in our group chat about how miserable they were. Like they were getting these big paychecks, but their lives kind of had less purpose now. And so I was worried about getting the golden handcuffs. And so that was a big reason. I was like, well, my cost of living is extremely low in Michigan. I could also move back home with and live in my mom's basement and build from there and not pay rent and, maybe get some meals here and there. All of this sounds like viable for me. And then beyond that, I started networking and meeting more people in Michigan. I had built up a network already, here. And to me, it just seemed more exciting to build an ecosystem than to join an existing one.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the community builder at heart is like I never fit into a community. I always had to build my own because none of them, like I never fit in any of those boxes. And I felt like I would just be going into a box if I moved to a bigger city. And luckily I'm riding a wave here because there's so much investment going on
Yeah.
in Michigan and specifically in Detroit right now, like billions of dollars into renovating Michigan Central, the old train station. I mean, Ford like put in so much money and now it's attracting five-star hotels and luxury restaurants and river walks and all of these things. So I think a part of it is luck too, but it's more exciting, I think, to build something than it is to join something that already exists.
Yeah, it's very cool. And did you get a lot out of it from when you were doing your Clifton Strengths course? Because I know when I've done the strengths that like, strengths training, strengths courses, like there's so much you learn about yourself as well in terms of what you're capable of, what you can leverage. Do you know what I mean? Because everything you're talking about right now is being a trailblazer, doing it differently, not wanting to fit into the status quo, for example, right? And it's from understanding your strengths, how do you master them? I think plays a pivotal role in your trajectory in life, in leadership, and in business. Like did you come to any realizations when you did this Clifton Strengths training about yourself that you were like, oh, okay, I didn't know that, I didn't realize that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because the Clifton Strengths Finder was an extremely formative process for me. I did it actually in my fifth year at Michigan as a part of an entrepreneurship leadership program at Michigan. I think the acceptance rate was like 10 or 15% of people who apply get into it.
Yeah, right.
And I happened to get in. And one of the workshops was a consultant who had worked at IBM for 2 decades, ultimately started her own company and became a Clifton StrengthsFinder coach. She came in and did the workshop for us, and I was the first one in my class of 25 to fill out the assessment. And she gave me a signed copy of her book called Unstoppable. And my number one strength in the StrengthsFinder assessment was a maximizer.
Ah,
So now you understand where
how you got to
the name
maximize
comes from.
media. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So what a maximizer does is it the someone with that strength can identify something really good and see the potential in it,
Mm,
either in the person or in the company or the idea or whatever, and they see the roadmap to help them get to great. And they actually help pour into becoming great. And so that was extremely formative for me. And it was interesting. I'll never forget. I went up to the consultant after the class, and I said, how, like, when can I start a company to do this? Because this is something that I want to do for people. And she said, uh, age and experience should never be a factor for you wanting to start something. If you believe that this is a calling for you to do this for people, you can do it now. Like, just sign up. It's 7 grand to take the certification course, figure out how to make the money, and do it. And that's literally what I did. I hustled, I made the money, I invested in myself, I got the certification, I ended up pouring into finding people. It's funny, I took a trip to Vegas to an investors conference. That's how I got introduced to venture capital. Met someone who was starting a family office. His son really wanted to like lead it, but he thought he didn't realize his son was not the best leader in his family. He asked his daughter, I helped him realize that his daughter was going to be better to run the company. And he ended up taking my advice, and now he has a full-on family office and is growing an investor community across the United States. So anyway, long-winded way of saying this Clifton Strengths Finder has really carried me, and it is a part of the inspiration for the name Maximize Media. It's taking really amazing, like good stories and helping them become great stories that people want to get behind.
I love it. And I love the whole maximize piece in terms of understanding that that was your number one strength, right? But it also plays out in terms of building the ecosystem because everything you're talking about, like how do you maximize people? How do you maximize the ecosystem? Let's pivot. Tell me a little bit about influence at scale because you've just kind of tapped on it just then. Like what's your view on influence at scale and from I guess from both a growth marketer but also from a maximize media perspective, what do you see The biggest blockers or friction points to be able to influence at scale? And what do you see as
Yeah.
the big opportunities when it comes to identifying the stories, the content, the storytelling to really be able to influence from in an authentic. God, I can't speak. This is like I'm on my coffee. This is my third pod for today, and it's only like 9:30 in the morning here. But yeah, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's two questions there.
Yeah, so I think starting like definition, like influence at scale. To me, in the day of social media, with everyone being on platforms, whether it be Facebook, Meta, Instagram, X, LinkedIn, Snapchat, YouTube, whatever the platform is, and they're always emerging platforms. Every company is a media company because at the end of the day, it comes back to the root thing that every single company needs, which is cash flow. They need customers. And so if you don't have a way of reaching your customers, which is i.e. marketing, storytelling, then you don't have a business, right? You have a hobby if it's not making money. And so to me, I think every company ought to think about their business as a media company.
Mm,
Um, and so from that lens, I think influence at scale to me means like I want to work with companies that are making a big impact in the world and who believe that a media kind of first approach, right, to reaching the audience or the people that they're helping in the world, those are the types of people that I want to reach, right? Like for me, the most important part of being a person is what kind of impact am I leaving? What kind of legacy am I leaving? Uh, are people, when I am not in a room or when I am no longer on this earth, how are they going to talk about me? You know, and are they going to say that he was a great man, that he really made a big impact on the people around him and even beyond him and the people and the world at large? So I just aspire to work with companies that share those values, right? And those are the reasons why they're starting the companies. I think in terms of like obstacles for that, I think specifically what I'm seeing with certain people that I talk to, they and this is not generalized like true, but specifically, um, over 40, they don't always believe in video first because they didn't grow up in a world that was video first with these platforms, so they don't always see the value. They see more value in written content or things like that. And then it gets to like where I see the biggest opportunities. The reason why I started my own podcast, the reason why probably you have your podcast, since we talked about it a little bit, the reason why I have this agency that specializes in podcasting as a service is because podcasting is the only strategy that allows you to get every other form of content in the most authentic and genuine way, right? You and I are having a genuine conversation that we could have completely unrecorded, offline, and we would get value or insights from it together. But if we recorded it and posted it online, now suddenly we're influencing at scale because we're posting it as a video. Perhaps there's going to be a blog or article written from it, maybe some captions or some text on different threads or LinkedIn, whatever it may be. Maybe it's an email of a summary of our conversation to your newsletter, right? So I think that's the biggest opportunity, and that's generally how I think about influence at scale.
it's really cool because you've just like, because I was kind of, my brain's been going like, oh, like think like as you're talking, I'm like, ask this, ask that. But you know, because when you called out that every business should look at their business like a media platform or a media, I was kind of like thinking to myself, and because my background's in brand and advertising and communications, you're not tr talking about traditional media as you know it. What you're talking about, this is this, you know, a new modern form of media, if you like. And it's interesting when you were calling that out. I was like, I've recently gone, like I only started this podcast, like I said, the indie podcast in February, just to kind of see, you know, and it's not a fully fledged one, you know, I'm about to put it onto Apple and Spotify, but you know, like for me, it was like test the waters, see what sticks, see what resonates. And it's only more recently I've gone, this is like a real media driver of my business. This is what is informing, you know, leadership, authority, I'm just like connecting, influence, like you say. And so then it's like and then I'm going, well, yeah, so then how do you scale? And then everything you're talking about from a video first is so true because people still want more than ever in a world that is so fundamentally distracted, noisy, somewhat inauthentic most of the time, the ability to see people talking, interacting, that human connection, that is more important than ever. And just the way you just explained then how you then cut it all up in all the various different forms of content, it's really fascinating. Like, I feel like you're talking about a new form of media, and then how do you scale that, and how do you reshape and redefine like what media looks like going forward, what businesses look like going forward. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And I don't think it's necessarily revolutionary by any
No.
means. But I do think it's working smarter, not harder. And I
Yeah.
do think that people don't realize the value that they can extract, but also
Leverage.
provide, right, and leverage, yeah, through a genuine conversation with someone in the domain that you want to be known for or you want people to talk to you about, right? Like those pieces of nuggets are going to be valuable for someone, and it's just the highest leverage you can get on your time from media. And like for you, right? You like has it been really a driving business, you know? Like I'm sure it has. I'm sure it's been driving new connections and new opportunities that are stones that you have yet to turn over, all of them, right? I'm sure there's tons of
So true.
opportunity,
Like, yeah, you hit a
right?
bit of a nerve when you said, is this a hobby or what is this? Like, it's not a hobby. It's certainly not. I mean, I've got other facets of my business, right? But it's like what's keeping me awake at night is like, okay, how do I make this become, a revenue stream? What does it look like in terms of like a driver in the business? And that's not kind of
I
from a hardcore salesy perspective in any way, shape, or form, but like ultimately it takes a lot of time as what you put in is what you get out of things, right? And so then how do
yeah.
you leverage that? How do you benefit from that? How do you make it work for you? Like when you're asleep at night, how's it working on its own without you? Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know if I'm making sense there.
I actually have a couple of thoughts there. Like, I don't think making money from a podcast is a bad thing, right? I don't like I think if
Yeah, I'd love your thoughts on that.
right? It's not a bad thing. Like making money is not a bad thing. If,
No.
you shouldn't feel bad about making money. I think, something underappreciated about a podcast too is that you're creating a genuine one-on-one connection. Or if you have multiple guests, genuine connection with multiple people that otherwise would be a hard unlock, right? But because you're saying, hey, we're doing a podcast, we're providing value to other people, suddenly you are collaborating on a piece of valuable content or information for other people, and you're already a team. So now you're already working together for a good cause, and let's figure out how we can make money together on that. And I think now too, it's going to be more easier than ever to do. This is really timely for you and for your listeners, but YouTube just came out with a new, I guess, product that I just found out from Neil Patel. Do you know Neil Patel? He's kind of a big marketer on YouTube.
I'm
Yeah,
going
you
to
should
check them out.
definitely look him
Yeah.
up. He's like a dream guest for me, but they YouTube just launched the ability for you to leverage your channel as basically like a TV station.
Oh, how
So
cool.
similarly how TV monetize and do like specific ad placements and different things, instead of you hard coding a ad placement into your podcast, YouTube now allows you to dynamically insert ads over time. So you will have this portfolio of all these videos that will live forever on YouTube, and you will continue as your show grows to get views on later episodes. And instead of saying, locking yourself into, let's say, a $10,000 deal with HubSpot for this one video or for the series of 5 videos, you can actually get recurring revenue from those videos over time because they're looking for a certain cost per click or a cost per impression or whatever it is. And your content will be more valuable when your show increases in viewership. So anyway, I don't know all the nuances of it, but just by doing this, you're building an asset that can be monetized either now or later into the future.
Yeah, and that for me comes back to your point around influencing at scale, but also like it's long term, right? It's long term like it's long term in terms of, like the content may be out now, but it's like it's the ability to be able to it almost never expires. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of it hasn't got really an expiry date. It's just how you then, like you say, you leverage it. Tell me, what are you seeing as the biggest opportunities for businesses and leaders when it comes to maximizing themselves, maximizing their media?
Well, I think those are definitely two different questions. So I think maximizing themselves, I could go on a whole rant about how I think about health and wellness and spirituality when it comes to business because business and entrepreneurship for me is very faith driven is like you have to have faith either for sure in yourself but even probably something beyond yourself to be a successful entrepreneur like you're running through brick walls on a daily or weekly basis when you want to start when you start a company so it's a very faith driven for me but also something that's important for me and uh, that I think a lot of business owners could benefit from is trying to cut out uh, things that for me I think are not necessarily good for you, which are like alcohol. I think not all drugs, but I think there are some that are, important, like medicine. But like for me, I went sober 3 years ago, and it's been like the biggest game changer for me in terms of being able to do so many different things, like all the hats I wear, right? Like not only in business, but then I also have a girlfriend and I have a brother that, I live with and that I help in certain ways, and like a family that I take care of back home. So I don't have kids yet, but if I had kids, I'm sure I'd be able to balance that too, just because I like am so focused and don't have these like things that are like pulling me down. So I think that's a lever that if people are feeling stuck and they want more out of their life that they can pull is like go a week without alcohol or, whatever it is, your substance of choice. It's a big game changer. And
Yeah, what
I'm
made
really,
you, out of interest, what made you decide 3 years ago just to, you don't have to answer the question by the way, but yeah, like what
yeah.
made you choose to just go, that's it, I'm done?
It's funny. So when I was in college, my sophomore year, my dad was having some health challenges. He's my dad. So for context, I'm 28. My dad is 82.
Wow.
And so he had me when he was really much older, and it was like being raised by a grandfather almost, is how I can describe it. And so in that sophomore year, he was going transitioning into a senior living home. And it was a very rough year for me.
Yeah.
And I found myself abusing substances and abusing things that were not good for me. And I think I failed like Spanish class twice at Michigan because I was driving home every single weekend to check on my family and, all of these things. And so it started from, I want to see if I can stop. That's where it started. And then it came to I watched Joe Rogan's podcast and he does something called Sober October.
Oh yeah.
And so every October he just goes sober and that's it. And that's his thing to say, hey, I don't have a problem. I can do what I want when I want and I can moderate and that's fine. So I did Sober October in 2019 and I like whipped right back into shape. I was like in the best physical shape of my life. I was mentally feeling really
Yeah.
confident and like things were happening for me. And I was like, let's just extend it. So I did another month and another month and another month. And then in December, I was like, I'm just gonna do the whole year sober. Like I'm just gonna make it a year. And that was in 2020. And it was like, and then I started two companies And then I started investing into myself with the Clifton stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I am experiencing the like a true um, you know, leap in like the person that I'm becoming. And I was like, why would I ever go back? Like, if I'm just living my best life without that stuff, why do I need it? And so anyway, a couple years went by and then officially in 2023, I was like, I'm going sober and I haven't done substances since.
Wow, that's incredible. Like from a form of adversity to then just like going, that's it. Like I'm going to test this out. And then all of a sudden, like just changing your trajectory. I think that takes, like a lot of, deep inner work, right? Like everything you're talking about, that mind, body, soul, faith, etc. It's, quite often when we're under stress or, under a form of adversity, we tend to things to kind of as an outlet. And it's the same with when it happens in business, we're so, kind of conditioned to quite often work hard, play hard. And yet we're constantly exhausted and we're not necessarily always, shining our brightest or feeling and performing at our best. And that's where we lose sight of what is possible, but you're demonstrating that it is possible. Um, and so I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
What would be I guess my last question would be, what would be, generally when people are booking for the pod, I ask them what would be one unique insight or lived experience I'd like to share in life, leadership, business, and I'll do a slash of and or investing. You've shared so many wise words. You've given us so much in terms of, how to influence at scale, how to maximize everything. But what would be one? It could be a tip, it could be, an insight. What would you share?
For which audience? Which audience would you like me to speak to?
Well, I give you the choice because it really is a choice, right? Like I call out, whether it's in life or it's in leadership or in business. I think it's for everyone, whether you're an up and coming or whether you've been in leadership a long time, whether in life you're at a crossroads, whether it's from a business perspective, if you're you want to start a company but you don't know how to, or if you've plateaued when you're scaling, like yeah, it's kind of I'm throwing it back to you in terms of whoever you want to pick, really.
Okay. Well, so I'll kind of go back to the second part of your previous question, which was like, what's one lever that a founder or CEO could pull to optimize or to grow or from my experience. And, I don't think this is necessarily any particularly unique advice, but I think it's more of a friendly reminder and this is again where my career has taken me, is like the best investment that you can make is into yourself.
Yeah.
Plain and simple, right? And that's why I believe so fundamentally in like building a personal brand. So for CEOs and founders, sitting behind a, desktop, in some remote location trying to build a company all day, yeah, you could be successful doing that, but like it, what's going to be more valuable is if you get out there into the world. Like don't be the founder CEO who's behind a computer and doesn't show up, like show your face for your company. Like so do that, right? Like show up, invest into yourself, building yourself up, and then you're gonna have so much more to share, right? And you're gonna be a cooler person. You're gonna love yourself more. You're gonna have way more happy memories if you just do the things that you need to do to maximize your life,
I
right?
love it.
So that
Very
would
cool.
be my, I guess, parting wisdom.
Yeah, no, I love that. And then it reminds me of your vibe attracts your tribe, right? Like the more you've got your vibe out there, you attract your tribe. That's where you are, like leveraging as well. So, Ryan, how do we find out more about you? Where do we find you? Maximize Media, your podcast.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I'm on LinkedIn, so that's a great way to find me. Is just Ryan Morrison on LinkedIn. Um, please connect with me. Give me tell me that you found me through Bee's show, and then, I'd love to connect with you. If you want to check out my podcast, I'm on YouTube. It's called The Ryan Morrison Show. I interview founders, CEOs, unconventional thinkers. We just dive into just the inner work that it takes to become successful, and the stories that were formed along the way. And then if you want to learn more about what we do from a podcast agency front, you can find us at www.maximize.media. And I'd love to learn more about if you have a show, we can help you scale it, and we can help you get the maximum value of the content that you're creating. And then if you are curious about starting a show, we can talk you through it. Just schedule a free consultation, and I'd be happy to learn more and help you see what is possible.
I love it. Oh my God, we have so many synergies in terms of just from what you're doing in, I won't say from podcasting, like as you know, I'm not a maximized media, but like just, like reshaping, what is leadership and business and how do you take it into the new frontier? I love everything that you're doing. Ryan, thank you so much. I'm going to leave it at that and have a wonderful evening.
All right. Thanks, B.
Thank you.